Cannabis Common Sense, the show that tells the truth about marijuana and the politics behind its prohibition.
Get registered and vote. By 1972, I had gotten involved. I was 32 years old. Got in an argument with a guy. Got into an argument with a guy about how much he charged me for some pot. And he said it was a 9 weed, and I said it was a 6. We got into a fight, and we made up this book. This book became the bestseller in the United States in the underground market in 1973, in 1974. And people walked up to me and said, Mr. Herr, I was 33 years old, I said, Mr. Herr, did you know that they used to make paper for marijuana? And I looked down at my lid, and I just couldn't picture how they made paper. I was from Buffalo, New York originally. They don't do that back there. So, next thing is somebody come up, 19, 20-year-old kid going to college. He said, you know, they used to use hemp for sales and clothes, marijuana. I had barely ever heard the word hemp before in my life, and usually with a hemp rope. It just kept growing. After I wrote this book, people thought I must know something about pot. At that time, 1973, early 73, I probably couldn't identify a pot plant if I stumbled on it. In 1973, I met a guy named Captain Ed Adair. He owned a head shop in Los Angeles called Heads and Highs. Then Van Nuys, another one in Reseda. And by himself, this guy, in 1972, decided that when they were collecting signatures to put California marijuana initiative on the ballot, he decided, the unpaid volunteer initiative, he decided to open the store 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and he'd give people 50% off if they bring in off a water pipe, off a pipe.
You're back on.
Hello? Okay. So, here we were with this Captain Ed in 1972, opened the store around the clock and did something no human being had ever done before that I have ever heard. He collected 140,000 signatures from his 2 stores in the San Fernando Valley. 1/3 of all the signatures that were collected in the state of California to put the marijuana initiative by volunteers on the ballot. That hundreds of petitioners came out of the store, would go out, come back, he'd give them some bucks off something, he'd smoke them out. If they didn't have a place to sleep, he'd sleep them in the back room. It was a hell of a thing. You couldn't believe it worked. It wasn't U.S. Steel, and it wasn't the U.S. government or the Army. This is a ragtag bunch of people that basically look like we do right now. In fact, he's a little bit more ragtag than tall hats. Anyway, as I'm telling you this story, in 1972, he opened the store, he made it his business, more than the other 200 head shops in California, 300 record stores from the chains that all had carried the petition. He got more signatures than all the other 400 or 500 stores in the state that carried the petition. And in one store, he got more signatures than all the other stores in the state combined. He made believers out of people that never thought they could believe in the power that one person can bring forth. For those of you out there that might know Captain Ed Adair at some point in his life, he was the most remarkable person. He took me, a polyester kid, a salesman, brought me in, turned me into a hippie, grew a beard, And we would go to marijuana meetings. For the California marijuana mission in 74. In 72, let me tell you about California. In June, when it qualified for the ballot, the initiative had 9% of the vote. About 81% against it, and 10% undecided. As July and August and September and October came, the numbers went up small. 10%, 12%, 15%. On Halloween, just before the election in November 1972, with the ever popular Richard Nixon running for the president, we had 19% of the vote. Everybody thought we would get slaughtered. Everybody had discounted the marijuana movement. The barefoot hippies that had collected the signatures. A no money movement, nothing behind it. We got 34% of the vote. And that blew politicians away. In state after state, Oregon, Alaska, California decriminalized marijuana because of that vote. And they only started with 9%. Remember when they qualified in June. It was put on the ballot by hippies that knew when you went out to petition as a volunteer, there's nothing wrong with making money petitioning, but if you volunteer that you're going to go collect signatures, go collect the signatures. Your word should be as good as your money. If you can't collect them, put up some money to the organization that is collecting them and let them use your money. About 50 cents, 60 cents buys a signature. You put up $10, you bought 20 signatures. You bought somebody standing in front of a supermarket and collecting your signatures for you. It's a decent way. You put up the money, somebody else collects it, the signatures. We've got the greatest story in the world to tell. Besides pot getting you well, besides it being one of the greatest medicines and the safest medicine on earth. There is nothing safer you can put in your body than marijuana. You will live longer if you smoke pot every day of your life than people that do no drugs at all. You'll live 8 to 24 years longer than people that use alcohol and tobacco. You'll enjoy music more, you'll stress out less, you'll come home from work, smoke a bowl, and equal that executive's 2-week vacation in the Puerto Vallarta, where he's always fighting with everybody. And they charged too much of this, and they did that. We came back in 74, Ed's store collected another about 25,000 signatures. But they failed to make the ballot by 40,000, which they later admitted they miscounted. They wouldn't put us on the ballot. 10 years later, the government of Oregon did the same to the Oregon marijuana mission in 1984. They said we missed the ballot by 300. I had come up here with a bunch of Californians and helped collect the signatures to put Oregon on the ballot. They said we missed by 300 signatures out of about 75, 80,000 collected. About 2 weeks from the initiative time, they said, yeah, you know what, we miscounted. You got enough signatures to get on the ballot, too late to put you on, so tough shit, you guys are off. That's pretty short shrift. We often didn't have lawyers to fight for us. Let me tell you, in 1973 and 74, as those people came up to me and told me that we could win the ballot, that we could get the signatures, and I thought we could do it voluntarily. I've tried probably 15 times in various states, mostly California, and missed the ballot until with Dennis Perone last year, or 3 years ago, we collected the signatures, we got on the ballot, we won a very liberal, very, very liberal medical marijuana in California. If you got headaches, you got stress, you got backaches, you got attitude, you can get a note. The hardest part about getting a note in California is the federal government has threatened doctors with the loss of their license. They haven't taken one away, but they've scared the hell out of the doctors. Very few doctors will give you notes.
If I had 20 speakers, I'd make people listen to.
So, when you think of all this work that people have been doing, the reason you can sit here and smoke a bowl, if you have to today, is because it's decriminalized in Oregon. It's decriminalized because about a half a dozen or a dozen people here, including Bill Convey, Mamas, Voter Power, these people that you just barely know, went out and collected signatures when the Oregon legislature recriminalized and Governor Kitzenhofer, or Bacher, or whatever his name is, signed it. We were at the Rainbow Gathering. We went out and collected signatures. We left the Rainbow Gathering stoned out of our mind on July 5th. You know what we were doing July 3rd when they signed it, and July 4th when we decided to come to stay in Oregon, not go back to California, and collect the signatures, put it on the ballot, stop the law from going into effect. You only have 90 days to stop a law from going into effect. It's called a referendum. Seldom used. But we went, in 90 days, we collected the signatures, stopped the law of Oregon from recriminalizing marijuana down to a seed. Where they can take your education, your car, your kids, go right home with you. If they find a joint in your car now, they must write you a ticket. If they find a joint in your car under that new law, they could take you home and search your house. So we went and we decided we have no time to talk it over. Then we have 90 days from when a law passes on a referendum to stop it. And only a few states have referendums. Oregon is one of them. They said we were losing, the papers that were for us said we were lose. Then we put out a medical initiative. That might pass. Might pass. But recriminalization was here, it was a fact. When it came up to a vote 9 months ago in November '98, a lot of people thought we were going to lose early on in that thing. We wound up winning by 66%. And I was happy to say, f*** the Oregonian. They put you in jail, take away your rights. It's a sloppy newspaper for a state. Marijuana, in case you ever have to defend it, hemp, don't forget, is the greatest single plant on our earth. Think of it, 3.5 million plants, and one plant is greater than all the other plants that grow on earth combined. Not just one at a time, like a King Kong over a retinue of other plants or beings or animals, but like a King Kong's King Kong. One plant can make all the paper, all the fiber, all the fuel. Nobody wants it to. But isn't it nice we have something to stop fossil fuels, to stop poison plastics? We have another way of living on Earth, but it takes you to register to vote. It takes you to register to vote and to vote. And if you move, re-register, and get everybody around you to register, and re-register, and re-register, and vote on issues. There might be things you might not want to vote for or against. But you'll find the lesser of evils, at least a choice. And one day you'll have things on the ballot, like initiatives that you're interested in, and you can actually do something. You can vote and cancel out some Gestapo-type brain who wants to vote in a synthetic future for mankind. So you live longer if you smoke pot than if you do no drugs at all.
Hey, give me some beer.
You live 8 to 24 years longer. 8 to 24 years longer, as I told you before, than people that use alcohol and tobacco. I often tell this driving story. If you're driving down the freeway and you're straight, and you go to miss your exit, you go, well, let me get over there, and you cross 3 lanes, and you get over. You see it every day. If you're drunk, and you go to miss your freeway exit, you say, oh, get over. You blindly cross another couple lanes. But if you're stoned, out of your gourd, and you go to pass your freeway exit, what I usually see is, whoa. You get off the next exit, you stop at the Burger King. You drive safer under marijuana. Everybody knows it. 99% of all the studies have shown it over and over and over again, and they've never been able to replicate their negative study. We're right. You live longer, you can make all the paper, fiber, fuel, food. Richest for protein on earth. Healthier than any other single food on earth. If we don't stand up and fight to shut those guys up, they can't shut us up in court. They can't shut us up in schools. They can't shut us up at all if you stand and tell your parents, tell your brothers and sisters and uncles and aunts, friends and acquaintances, and the guy sitting next to you on the bus. I have never stopped or gotten tired of telling the story of how to win your freedom. You register and vote. And you vote and you vote. To learn about this subject. I learned about this subject and I wrote a book about it. I know some of you read The Emperor Wears No Clothes. 600,000 copies, 11 new editions every time I write it. We write it new so that it has everything that was in it before plus everything that was updated to now. The information is irrefutable. Marijuana is the queen and king of the earth. It's the healthiest and best thing for you. But it needs you to fight for it. It can't get up and fight for it. It's given us its knowledge. It's given us its incredible advantages. The finest paper from corrugated box. The finest fuel. The best oil. The #1 protein source on earth, and the highest linoleic and linoleic, the essential fatty acids the body must have of all the foods on earth, and it can clean your blood better than anything else on earth. This is a plant that is illegal. And the only people it needs is us and all of the us that we know to be taught this information over and over again in an irrefutable way. So guys, I ask you to join me in registering to vote. There's a couple of initiatives floating around California, Oregon right now, to get on the ballot for marijuana. They are not my preferred words, but I signed them. They belong on the ballot if we have nothing else to put on the ballot, because it gets the information out. We can teach this information comprehensively. And there are 80,000 of us in prison in America, in jail in America. 1.5 million on parole and probation for marijuana. We want to get them all out of prison, all out of jail. We want to wipe the records clean. Until that happens, we haven't won this war. Nobody can rest on their laurels. If you have a soul and you care, you're going to do or give something every day. Big as it might be, big as it might be, to the marijuana movement. I have, my friends have, and because of it, I think a lot of us are a little bit freer here in Oregon and California than we would have been. So, for Captain Ed, wherever he is, and for me, Jack Herr, I want to thank Bill Condi for having this event against the police powers. All of you should think that a lot of people were scared to stay or come here. Because you're here, Bill's going to have a tough year.
He's got lots of friends.
You're going to have lots of friends. You need lots of money. So, I don't know what the solution is support Bill. When he asks for support, go out of your way. Because he has supported this movement in this state so well for 15, 16 years that I know him. You just can't do better than Bill Condi for helping save the planet. I have a booth over there next to Bill's. It's about 3 over from the elephant, above the elephant here. I'd love to see you there, talk with you. Remember to go register and vote. And then remember to teach all your friends that are 18 or older, register to vote right now and ask them the question so they get tired of you. Order you out of the house.
You're the man.
I love you. Take care, guys.
This is a song I played around here before. I want to slow it down a little bit and see if it sounds any better. It's called Waking Up. It goes like this. Waking up, waking up, waking up, waking up. Chemicals billowing high in the sky. They say it's good, I say it's lies. We've had enough. Waking up, waking up, waking up, waking up. Banksters and gangsters all have the play. They're shaking you out. Found a new way. You're waking up. Truth is love I want to share. Hope people are ready and that the world cares. Waking up, waking up, waking up, waking up. Truth is, that's right. Waking now. So I'm free, I can go create my own destiny. Calling all peoples, all tribes. Time to awaken, time to arise. Waking up, 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 waking up. Waking now, so we are free. We can go create our own destiny. Calling all peoples, all colors, all tribes. It's time to awaken. It's time to arise. Waking up, waking up, waking up, waking up, waking up, waking up, waking up. Waking up. Let's hope we wake up.
somebody enjoy it? This is the largest Harvest Fest we've ever had. When you call for the legalization of hemp and the legalization of pot, you are making a political statement that does not conform with the standard wisdom of the time. The criminalization of drugs only enhances the power of some tired old white males in Washington, D.C. who want to continue to control people of color, poor people, women, young people, and people who disagree with the way this nation is being run today. You see, it's all right in the United States to be an alcoholic. That's because George Bush and his cronies are alcoholics. It is all right in this country to consume legal drugs. Drugs that destroy the mind, the spirit, and the body because huge multinational conglomerates produce, manufacture, and distribute these types of drugs.
Getting high about what the pigs are doing, stuff like that. No offense, fellas, but it's just the way it is. Then into some Ohio hippies that got their ban lifted for 3 seeds. Really ridiculous stuff. The punishment should fit the crime. Right now you can pistol whip somebody, you can rob a bank, you can do a lot of things, and you'll do more time messing around on marijuana than you will do like stuff like that. It's not right. I don't know how they can get behind enforcing those kind of laws. The word came down from above, from Big George or Nancy, I don't know who it was. Now they're grabbing people, throwing them in jail. It's all bullshit, all the way along the line. They can't defend themselves as far as I'm concerned.
I think that, that the herb should be legalized because there is, as I say, a big difference between smack, crack, and smoking flowers. And I'm sick and tired of my friends being dragged off or their houses or cars being confiscated for a joint of marijuana when there are 500,000 deaths a year from alcohol and nicotine. I mean, come on, let's get real here. So what I suggest you do is let's legalize it. We could do it if we got together. We could do anything.
Marijuana was known in America as reefer or grass. Within a few years, reefer songs spread widely from the music clubs which had appeared everywhere where the immigrant black community settled.
Have you ever met that funny reefer man? Have you ever met that funny reefer man?
Along with new developments in the hemp industry and a growing awareness of the dangers of alcohol, marijuana began to be the subject of interest in the corridors of political power.
In 1911, New Orleans and then Louisiana and Mississippi and a couple of states along the Mississippi River outlawed marijuana.
Meanwhile, alcohol was increasingly being seen as a danger to society. American women lobbied for alcohol to be banned, They succeeded with prohibition, which led to illegal speakeasies, the proceeds of which enriched criminals and resulted in violence and gang warfare. Alcohol was legalized again in 1933.
Then all of a sudden alcohol was becoming legal again, and all these agents didn't have anything to do, and Harry Anslinger thought, well, we should have a law against hemp, and so did William Randolph Hearst, and so did DuPont, and the three companies got together, and other people claiming the cotton industry joined in to outlaw hemp because it was making a huge comeback. And the reason it was making a huge comeback is that it took 200 to 300 hours to plant, harvest, and make ready for fiber, acre of hemp. But all of a sudden, in the 1930s, that 200 or 300 man-hours per acre went down to 1 man-hour per acre. It was a better fiber than any other fiber and previous hemp fibers. And that was the beginning of the end of all fibers, as being the only synthetic. Nylon, which is the new synthetic, would have to make way for the reintroduction of hemp as an inexpensive fiber, as well as the strongest, the best, the longest lasting, and the softest fiber. The government of the United States outlawed a fiber and forced the rest of the world to swallow it. They swallowed the outlawing of the #1 fiber on Earth for 10,000 years until the 1930s, and then they outlawed it completely.
China, the hemp country, was part of the Japanese plan for military conquest.
But in official Tokyo, seat of an empire which for nearly a decade has been governed by its stern and ruthless military caste, there is more activity, more secret comings and goings than in many a year. The little men who command the world's third largest navy see in the South Pacific the richest of all colonial prizes. The Philippines, a group of 7,091 Pacific islands which, still under the protection of the U.S. flag, constitute the only major hazard to Japanese plans for new conquest in the war year of 1940. Already one important island industry, the growing and processing of Manila hemp, is almost entirely under Japanese control. And within the past few years, by intensive cultivation, Japanese immigrant farmers have increased production of the one cash crop which has long been a virtual Philippine monopoly.
The invasion of the two big hemp-producing countries, China and Philippines, was the start of hemp rationing. Hitler was also aware of the strategic importance of hemp, which was used in the making of canvas and ropes, both of which were an essential part of his war effort. In 1941, when the German army invaded Russia, it blocked Britain's supply of Russian hemp. Germany managed to develop her own hemp production, but the cultivation of this fiber, which had become so necessary in wartime, was still banned in Great Britain. In 1942, the German troops reached the center of Russia. The land continued to produce hemp, which enabled Hitler to move confidently to the next stage of his plans for the Reich. To safeguard its own supplies of hemp, Great Britain urged India to increase production. Meanwhile, war was spreading to Japan.
Within little more than a year, Japan, successfully employing once again the deceit and treachery which had so well served her in the past, had taken the final desperate plunge.
When Japan bombed Pearl Harbor, forcing the United States of America to declare war, Americans realized they were cut off from their hemp supplies. The U.S. Navy was totally dependent upon hemp for rot-resistant ropes for their ships and for many other components. The American government then decided to redevelop their hemp industry. Marijuana was legalized again and farmers received seeds. A propaganda film called Hemp for Victory was then made to encourage this war effort. The Allies' air forces were completely reliant upon hemp. Parachute straps, packs and belts were made out of hemp. No other available fiber was so strong and so reliable under combat conditions. After General MacArthur had forced the Japanese to withdraw from the Philippines, hemp production soon reached pre-war levels again. After the war years, a new world arose from the ashes of the old. India gained independence. Thanks to automation, India doubled its hemp production and increased its exports to America and the rest of the world. In peacetime, the United States once again banned the cultivation of hemp and cannabis, but at the same time imported millions of tons of hemp during the post-war economic boom to supply its industries.
For this is the Port of New York, a sprawling pattern of activity covering more than 1,500 square miles. Its 650-mile waterfront, an ever-changing mirror reflecting the work of the world and its needs and tastes. Grain from Canada, and fish from Portugal and Norway. Tires from Akron, and hemp from India.
During the post-war years in France, hemp growing and processing went through a revitalized industrial revolution.
What is interesting to underline is the fact that in France hemp culture went on in spite of American prohibition. While prohibiting marijuana in the USA, they prohibited hemp too, and so you couldn't grow it anymore. In France, hemp growing went on. France was a very rural nation at that time, and remained so until the 50s. They continue to cultivate hemp there today. What happened was that synthetic fibers went on to become a huge development. And even in France, in a country where hemp growing was still legal, hemp began to widely decline, until the hemp textile industry finally died at the end of the 60s.
In the 60s, hippies began a worldwide movement calling for the legalization of cannabis. English and American rock stars encouraged people to smoke it. The Beatles, led by John Lennon, turned England on by singing openly pro-cannabis lyrics.
The Rolling Stones' preference for Moroccan hashish brought them more fans, offering an alternative to the Beatles and to the fashion for things Indian. Hippies then decided to hit the road for Morocco.
Do you see the fields over there on the mountain? At this time of year, you can't find any other plant growing there, because this is the only crop that grows here. Can you see how easily it grows? You can find it even in front of the hotel. I think if these people had to choose a symbol, it would definitely be the hashish flower. I think they grow here at least 10 tons of hashish a year, so there must be other people than hippies who buy it. In Jamaica, the Rastafarian religion advocated smoking cannabis. They called it ganja.
Herb is the sacrament of the Rastafari Church, and basically through studying the Bible, we understand that it's there for the healing of the nation. In other words, it can nourish the mind just as food nourishes the body. It's like a key that can open certain aspects of your mind. And the brain needs feeding just as the rest of your body does. But for me personally, it seems to tune you into a certain wavelength that you can't reach without it. Although I do understand that through certain meditations, one can achieve these heights without smoking herb or taking any other drugs. But in the 20th century, I personally don't have the time, so it's like a shortcut to get to this place to help you be creative. And another thing I find really interesting about weed is how through the smoking of it or the trying to acquire it, it brings together people of different classes, backgrounds, cultures. And in bringing those people together, there's an exchange of ideas, and through that exchange, other things happen.
At the same time, cannabis was legalized in Holland. That's how Ben Dronkers was able to become the first legal producer of marijuana to become a millionaire.
Here we find different varieties that me and my colleagues, we tested out by once in a while looking at the plants and try them out. In that sense, it's a wall where people can always look and go back to and say this variety had a certain smell or a certain aroma. Quality is very important, and it's the most important factor where we look at. Always people think also about quantities of material you can harvest, and of course it's very difficult to have a balance. You find plants with very large, big buds, and you find plants with smaller buds. But even the plants like this that have a very small bud is one of our basic plants we have for the breeding of many of the strong varieties that you can see on this side. That means that some of the strengths and some of the important potency we always try to bring back in one variety, and that is the variety that people buy in the shop. And that is the importance of good seed, is like any farmer could know that that's the start, and then you end up with some good materials. The Sensi Seed Bank grows the best marijuana seeds in the world, I think, for many years. Also, we want to make the best hemp seeds from the world, and we're working very hard on that. For that, we made a new company that's called Hempflex, and Hempflex produced in the north of Holland on this moment, last year, 140 hectares of hemp, and coming year we want to go to 1,500 hectares. That is the minimum we want to do, and for sure later on we will have to do more. From that material we have produced last year, we're producing on this moment just the raw fiber and the wood materials. It comes out like that. And from the wood we have the plan to make cat litter, and actually the same things like people want to do in England. It's beautiful wood you can press from it, and also some composites like this pressed from fiber and wood. And very interesting, what I like, one of the things I like myself the most is the isolation material. It smells good, you can make it fireproof, and it's much better than all the glass fiber that is all in these living rooms out there. So hemp is the future.
Here is our show and tell, our sharing for tonight. This first thing is a specific medicine container. You see it says American hemp. It says it's great, I'll read the label. It says great for nervous depression, irritation of the genitourinary tract, painful micturition, and or use for scalding, burning, frequent low mental conditions, wakefulness. This is just recommended for just about everything, and it's got a date on the back. It says American hemp is considered an anodyne, hypnotic, antispasmodic, producing sleep even when opium and morphine fail. Efficient in delirium tremens, which is what alcoholics get, infantile convulsions, and fevers, neuralgia, gout, rheumatism, low mental conditions, insanity, and inflammatory conditions. It's often preferable to opium and where opium disagrees. So that's what it says on this jar right there in tiny letters. I read it. Then this one is from a currently operating company, Park Davis. This is in solid powdered extract. And you see it has about half of the containers are still in here. This is from 1910. It says Indian Cannabis on this little label in the back. And it's a Park Davis product produced in Detroit, Michigan. It is powdered hashish, or keef, we often call it, but they call it powdered extract of cannabis. Right next to it is another powdered extract of cannabis. Let's get it away from the leaf a little bit. There we go. Oh no, back the other way. There, that's better. So this one's from Eli Lilly, and I have a series of Eli Lilly products here that are going to the Cannabis Museum in Athens, Ohio here in short order. But this is a specific powdered cannabis product. Then right next to it from the Merrill Company is also a powdered extract of cannabis. All three of these jars were made to hold 1, 2, 3, an ounce of cannabis. In fact, this one even says right on the back, 1 ounce. So you can see this one's empty. This is the only one that has some of the contents in it. Right next to it here, maybe you can close in a little bit on that. This is chlorodyne. Chlorodyne was a medicine for pain and sleep, and it's also from Eli Lilly. It is cannabis, morphine, peppermint, chloroform, and caspicum. So this has a lot of different things in this chlorodyne from Eli Lilly in Indianapolis. And so it was used for pain and spasms. And so it, like again, I said again, it has morphine, cannabis, capsicum, chloroform. This stuff will just knock you out, basically. Then right next to it, we have another Eli Lilly product, cannabis tincture number 17. Eli Lilly, Park Davis, these guys each had over 24 different cannabis products that were slightly different in the extracting agent and the contents and concentrations. So this was their number 17 cannabis tincture. Right next to it, here we have number 96. You see it says poison. They thought it was poison for a while. This bottle is from the 1880s. They thought you could overdose on it. Well, it was 1 ounce of cannabis extract in 9 ounces of alcohol. That's what it says on there. So this is a number 96. And right here next to it, a little bigger version of number 96, again from about 1905, about 110 years old here. And so then right next to it we have one from 1870, and this one is particularly interesting. It has a label here on the back. It isn't in real good shape. This is Cannabis Indica USP. On the back of it here, it says, not poisonous according to the best authorities, though formerly regarded so. It's an antispasmodic, analgesic, anesthetic, and narcotic. It's an aphrodisiac, specifically recommended in spasmodic conditions of and painful ailments for preventing rather than treating migraines, almost as specific in that form. Insanity peculiar to women. In other words, menstrual problems. Diagnosed by mental worry or moral shock. So if you're a woman on PMS and you have mental worry or moral shock, this company thought this was the thing for you.
Like that.
It's an it goes on and says, in the best known hypnotic and delirium tremens. Again, if you're an alcoholic, this would help you get off the booze. Its anodyne power is marked in chronic metriitis and dysmenorrhea. Dysmenorrhea, again, is menstrual pains. Used with excellent results in habituates of opium, chloroform, and cocaine use. So they also recommended it to get off opium, chloroform, and cocaine. In hysterical cases, as claimed by chloral or opium, it's acting especially well. So that's what Eli Lilly said in approximately 1870. Then right next door we have this cough and cold balsam, and it is alcohol, chloroform, and antimony tart. And so it has a bottle inside, and this nifty little thing here. Here is the bottle. And so maybe we can close in on that a little bit. Then it has this insert that is actually printed in 13 different languages. You can read it in 13 languages. In case you're, newly immigrated here, this was a medicine. This is from 1885. It was produced in Pennsylvania, Plymouth, Pennsylvania. Right next to it, we have our regular hemp flame of freedom. This is hemp seed oil with a hemp wick. This is next week's wick right here, folks. And this is some raw hemp oil. And this is after we've had the hemp wick in there and burning it. This is just a little shot glass with some hemp seed oil in it, and we light it up. So this is the reason that marijuana is illegal. It's not a coincidence, I believe, that an Israeli-Canadian energy company called Adira Energy, again, you can look them up, A-D-I-R-A energy.com. This Israeli-Canadian oil company, I've been talking for years that the only reason that marijuana is illegal isn't really about drugs, it's really about money and power and the continued centralization of economic and political control. And it's specifically about energy and fiber. So these are the reasons marijuana is illegal. They don't want us to have this naturally centralized resource. They want us to have to buy it from them. Does that sound familiar to you? Anyway, here's our hemp ball of twine, and this is hempcrete. It's limestone powdered down called quicklime, and it's broken up and it's stronger than concrete. And then this is a little hemp stalk. We like hemp stalks around here, don't we, Eric?
Yes, we do. Larry.
All right. So that's the end of our show and tell for tonight.
I'm going to do a Lowell George song. It's a trucker's favorite.
One of mine, too.
All right, here we go. Warped by the rain, driven by the snow, drunk and dirty, don't you know that I'm still, Lord, I'm still. Out on the road late last night, I seen my pretty Alice in every headlight. Alice, Dallas Alice, I've been from Tucson to Tucumcari, to Hatchapee to Tonopah, driven every kind of rig that's ever been made, driven by the back road so would not get weighed. If you give me weed, whites, and wine, you show me a sign, I'll be willing to be moving. Kicked by the rain, driven by the sleet, had my head stoved in, but I'm still on my feet, and I'm still, Lord, I'm still. Smuggled some smoking folks from Mexico, baked by the sun every time I go to Mexico. And I'm willing, I've been from Tucson to Tucumcari, to Hatchapee to Tonopah, doing every kind of rig that's ever been made, driven by the back roads so I would not get weighed. If you give me weed, whites, and wine, you show me a sign, I'll be willing to be moving.
Well, that's the way it is this week. Next week we'll have a tape show, and the week after that we'll be back here with Anthony Taylor of Compassionate Oregonians on November 17th to talk about his experience in the legislature and what patients have to do to comply with these new rules and regulations. But we appreciate you watching, and we appreciate Mr. John Cornett standing by in the wings. We appreciate the team of a dozen people that are behind the cameras and in the control rooms that keep this show going, and we appreciate you too, bro. And you too, viewers. Tune in next week, and remember to help us restore him.
Like that.
Right. Harvest is here. Everything is so good. We like train wreck, northern lights. We like Shrek too. Sour diesel. Life is good. Life is good. Life is good for you and me. So good. So good. So good. So good. We like train wreck. That's right. Northern Lights. We like Godfather too. And cheese sometimes. Life is good. Ah. Life is good. Can be every day. Life is good for you and me. Yes, so good. So good. So good.